Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Burnt Pancakes podcast. I am your host, Katie Fenske, and I'm sharing another momversation with you. This one today is with Lindsey Lahm, a mom of now 6 kids. Since recording, she has had her 6th baby. And I just absolutely loved this chat with her. It's exactly what I wanted this podcast to be. I envisioned myself just having chit chats with other moms, kind of like you met a mom at the park and you were finding out how many kids she had, what things are like. You're kind of sharing your struggles and your like joys together. And that's really what it felt like when I was talking to Lindsey. She is going to talk to us a little bit about what it's like having a big family, how to know when you're done having kids, and what it's like homeschooling her children. So, for someone who has worked in the homeschool world prior to this, it was really fun to chat about kind of what curriculum she's using, what got her into this, what are some of the benefits of homeschooling, and some of the challenges. So, this is really, really fun to talk about. Um, she also mentioned this is a quote that she had. There are times when I look at my almost 10 years of being a mom and I feel really accomplished, and other times when I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. So if you don't resonate with that, I don't know, because that was like bingo, that's exactly what motherhood feels like to me. So she's super, super relatable. She's also sharing with us how she desperately needed her tribe during motherhood. And because it was hard to find, she went out and created it herself. So she's going to tell us a little bit about her social club that she has created. And in doing so, talks about the importance of finding a life outside of motherhood. You know, as moms, we sometimes feel like we are so consumed with everything our children, and we lose touch of who we are and just things that we bring joy to ourselves. So, on that note, she's also going to tell us how raising all these kids, she is able to become a published author. So, she's going to tell us a little bit about her book. I'm not going to tell you what genre or anything because it's a fun little story of the books she's published and how she fit all of this in during motherhood. So, enough talking. Let's get to today's conversation. Lindsey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to hear from you. I feel like we have quite a few topics to talk about. So let's get started. Why don't you give us just a rundown? You say you have a big family. So give us the ages and gender of your kids.
Yeah, thank you. So I have 2 daughters and 4 sons. One who's soon to be born, not very, or very imminently. We're expecting him.
Oh my God, I didn't even know you were pregnant.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
I'm
because at
trying
one
not to
point you
make a
said,
big deal
I
out
am
of it,
ready to
but
be out of the baby stage. And I was like, oh, I feel
yes,
that. Yeah. Okay. So you
yes,
have currently 5 and you're pregnant with the 6th?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so my 9-year-old daughter, she's my adventure-loving ringleader of the family. And then I
Uh,
have an 8-year-old son who's very like creative. He loves building his own Lego designs and all that good stuff. Um, they're in 4th grade and 2nd grade. And then my second daughter is 6. So she's kind of like the queen bee, I would say, where she gets doted on by the older kids, but then she also loves to dote on and kind of nurture the younger ones. So she's
aw,
a very happy middle child.
nice in the middle.
Yeah. And then we have our 2 little boys that are 4 and 2. My 4-year-old is the very like typical boy, leap before you look.
Oh,
Don't even
God.
think about it till after it happens type
Oh,
of thing.
I have 3 of those. Yep.
Oh, yeah. That's tiring.
It is. It's the like impulsiveness that I'm just like,
Very.
did you not think that throwing that, like the consequences, they don't think.
It's so true. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I suppose it probably doesn't get too much different with age,
No,
but
it just gets bigger.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Right now, it just entails him running across the carpet and face planting suddenly,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
popping right back up like nothing happened.
Perfect. There you go.
But yeah, and then our 2-year-old is kind of just a big talker, baby of the family. He has no
Oh.
idea he's about to be dethroned. So,
Yes.
I'm interested to hear him verbalize what that's gonna feel like for him because right
Yes.
now he loves Bean, the little charmer.
Oh, that's a big adjustment. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Do you know the gender of the next one?
Yes, it will be another boy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy world. That's fun. It's
I'm
fun.
so thankful to have two girls and that they have each other. So, yes.
Oh, that is nice that you have multiple girls that they can
hmm
have sisters. Did you always know you wanted a big, because this is a pretty big family for today's
It
standards.
is. It is. I think I was open to the idea. And then the more children we've had, the more I've realized my own limitations and how I want to be able to be just there to meet the needs of each of my kids
Hmm.
as best as I can. And so that's a real challenge when there's more and more of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're definitely done.
Oh, I see. I was going to ask that question because
Yeah,
everyone always says, "Are you done? Are you done?" How
I
did you
know.
know this one was it?
Well, I felt like I knew a couple children ago, and there were other things that happened. So, I'm very thankful that we get to have one more, and then we're very done.
Yes. Yes. So
So,
I kind of had the feeling after two, like we always
mm,
said, oh, we're going to have two. We're going to have two. And then I had two
mhm,
and I was like, I just don't feel done. Like there's something in
mm,
me that's like, this isn't it, which was very surprising because I was like, this is it. Well, we had two boys too. So I thought
yeah, yeah.
maybe there's a girl in there. After my third, I was like, I am done. I feel like we're at the point where we're like stretched thin. Like we're at max capacity here.
Yeah.
And I got to the feeling of like, I I do not want to get pregnant again. Like
Mhm.
we're at our limit. And I think everyone has a
Yes.
different limit. Like you
Yes.
may have it at one, you may go for six. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to know what will play into that, but I do think getting into my 30s definitely made me feel like, okay, this is physically a lot harder
Yeah.
and there's a lot of other things I want to do with my life.
Right. Right. Do you feel like your older ones are pretty helpful?
Yes, we've definitely tried to, you know, encourage them to have some personal responsibility, but there's always that danger of like relying too much or,
Hmm.
parentification and want to try to avoid that. So
Right.
we try to strike a balance there.
Yeah.
But they
I
do
look
enjoy helping.
back at, so I had my third when my oldest was five or like five and a half. So now my youngest is four. And I look at him and I think, how did I think my older son was so like old and responsible? Like that, hey, go get the
Firstborns are
biscuit.
born older
I
though.
was like,
I'm
he was such a
caveats.
baby. Like,
There's exceptions, but
right. It blows my mind that it just seems so much like you just seem so much
Mm,
younger. Or like I had my third when my middle was two. I'm like, he was still a baby then. Like but
yes.
I just expected so much more. I'm like, well, now I have another baby, so you've got to kind of grow up a little bit. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Now, how do you fit homeschooling into all of this? Because you homeschool, is it your oldest three are homeschooling?
Yes, yes. My oldest daughter's in fourth grade, and then we have a second grader and then a first grader. So it's the
What
top
made you
three.
decide to do that? Was it from like early on kindergarten or?
I was homeschooled. I felt like I had a good experience. My husband was homeschooled.
Oh,
We both
interesting.
also come from large families.
Okay.
So for us, that is like just the normal, what we're familiar with.
Hmm.
And we just got to see a lot of benefits personally. Like I did a lot of art classes and music in high school and stuff like that, that I don't know that I would have done as much if I was in school. I'm like, you never know, but
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed the opportunities. So we were interested in doing that, and then the more that I've done it with each child and the more years pass and the more different more complicated grade levels and coursework that we get into, the more I personally enjoy it. Like I really love learning. I feel
Mm.
like I get to do a lot of a refresher course on like
Uh-huh.
history and things that I don't remember as much from my own schooling. And so it's just fun for me
Yeah.
most of the time. And there's definitely days where it's not as fun,
Right.
more of
I
a
would love
chore,
to have them in school right now. Hmm.
Yeah. I also was a nanny for a while and did the whole like morning routine of like
Okay.
wake everybody up, get everybody dressed, get in the car, go to school. And I would do that with the children that I nannied. And just that taste of that gave me the perspective that like it is there are pros and cons with that as well. It's not just the exchange of like, oh, now I get to hand my kids off and get a bunch of time back. It's like there's also a huge routine and strict
Mhm.
schedule that you have to allow to
Right.
set the tone for your week.
Yeah.
So
That's what when for us, when summer vacation rolls around, it's like, oh, phew, our mornings aren't hectic anymore. We don't
mm,
have to worry about coming home and doing homework and all that. Like
yeah,
the ease and
yeah,
flow of your day feels really nice. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Interesting. So I didn't know that both of you were homeschooled. I have you seen a huge increase in homeschooled students since when you did it? Like, did you know many homeschooled families
Mm.
when you were being homeschooled?
I think we had a few that we were acquainted with. At one point in my childhood, we moved to Texas, and there's a huge homeschooling community in Texas,
Oh,
especially around the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
okay.
There was a lot more to do and a lot more friends and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but definitely the data. My husband's a little bit in doing a entrepreneur type of project for homeschooling
Oh, cool.
families and helping them connect with curriculum resources and such.
Hmm.
So he's looking into the data a lot, and definitely COVID
Oh, for
caused
sure.
a huge uptick in the number of homeschool families because
Hmm.
some people were maybe skeptical and they had no other choice, but then they tried it and really loved
Oh,
it.
I
So
can
then
do
it's
this. Yeah,
done a cultural shift of like, oh, we can do this.
right. I
Yeah.
worked for I'm not sure if you have this where you live. So in California, we have, they're called independent study charter schools. So it's kind of like homeschooling, but you do it through a charter. Um, so I worked as like a public school teacher, but I would meet with these homeschooled families and do that. And yes, we definitely saw a huge increase
Hmm.
in COVID. Do you have any options like that, or you're just 100% independent?
I'm not 100% sure. I know that there are charter schools. There's one just down the road from us. I don't know exactly what the structure of it is or anything. Um, but yeah, we've lived in South Carolina for about 3 years, so we are transplants. But
Okay.
yeah, we're actually originally from the Chicago area, so
Oh,
that's
no
interesting. You were
way.
saying you had family up
Yeah,
there.
out in the suburbs of Chicago. Yeah. Oh, funny.
Yeah, us too.
Okay, so what would you say are some of the pros of homeschooling? Like, what do you love about it?
Mm. I love the individualized attention to detail for each student. We have a few students with learning disabilities like dyslexia, and so just being able to tailor something specifically to what that child needs and having the flexibility to even shift in the middle of the semester,
Mm.
that has been super helpful. Um and also just the ability to kind of involve everyone together and do stuff that crosses age gaps a little bit. We end up
Yeah.
having a lot of that with history where we'll read picture books about different time periods or historical figures. And so it's just kind of fun to see that, like, even though it's way below her grade level, my fourth grader might actually catch something from the picture library book that we
Mhm.
got, that she didn't get from her more textbook type of level. So,
Yeah. Does
yeah.
that take a lot of planning on your part?
No, I
Mm.
purposefully chose a curriculum. Like some people love to like, do the
Research the books and yes,
exactly and like pick and choose from all the thousands of options, and that is
there's
just
so many.
not
There are
for
so
me.
many.
Yeah, that's overwhelming to me. So I just pick something that's like pre-packaged that you just
Mm.
open it and do what it says.
Okay, so can I ask you what language arts curriculum do you use? I'm curious
So
if
we
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, we're just doing Gentle Feast. It's like a Charlotte Mason
Okay.
inspired curriculum. It's actually written by a lady who lives in South Carolina, who
Wow.
was a elementary school teacher for quite a while.
Oh,
So
interesting.
we've really enjoyed her curriculum for
Okay.
most of the students. So yeah.
Right, but that's the beauty of it. You can pick and
Yes.
choose. Because I look at my three kids, I'm like, My middle loves building. He can stay focused for hours working on this, doing that. Like he has no problem doing like letter things. My oldest, it's like you got to keep moving things along. He loses
Mm,
attention really. So that's so nice that you can adapt that.
mm-hmm.
Okay. And Charlotte
Yeah.
Mason, I had a family that I worked with. They all kind of had their own philosophy that they tended to follow. One of the
Uh-huh.
families was Charlotte Mason, and I just always loved seeing their work because it was like so beautiful. I always felt like I was like going back in time, like going back to the good old days when we just like, she's like, we did our nature walk today. And then we
Mm-hmm.
drew our little illustrations while we're out. I'm like, this just sounds so lovely. Like, I'm sure this is hard for you and it's a lot of work, but your children seem like they have the sweetest little upbringing. It was,
Yeah. We love our nature walks. We haven't done them as much this past year with everything going on, but we definitely, when we moved here, we were like, oh, new trees to study, new plants, new
yes,
birds, so
so
it
fun.
makes it very
Are
fun.
you hoping to do it all the way through high school?
Ah, I like to say we take it a year at a time and just I've definitely been open, especially if our kids needed something that I felt like I couldn't provide, or maybe if I was in
Hmm.
a season of my life where I was not physically or,
Yeah.
emotionally or mentally capable. Um, so I don't know. We'll see.
See how it goes. Have any of them expressed interest in going to like a brick and mortar school?
No. No, some of their friends go to a private school and they hear about how their friends are like gone until 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then have to come home and finish homework.
Right. It's so
And they're
ridiculous,
always
right?
like, why can't they play
What?
with us already? Like,
Yes. That is the thing that's killing me right now. I'm like, you're in school all day. Why are we coming home and expecting them to sit and do more work? Or part of it is like sitting on a computer and doing like the
mm,
digital thing.
yeah,
Yeah. That's as a
yeah,
former teacher, I'm like, I used to assign homework and now I'm like, I wish I could go back and just no, go home,
yeah.
go play, go be with your family, be with
Be
your friends.
outside.
Oh, so hard. Okay, so what are some of the
Mhm.
challenges then of homeschooling?
Yeah, I think because we have so many children, it would be totally different challenges, if I only had my two
One or
oldest or
two. Yeah.
something. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge is sometimes someone needs one-on-one coaching, and I literally cannot offer that,
Mhm.
in that moment. And so then we just have to say, you know what, we're going to set this work aside. We may or may not come back to it today. We may have to get to it tomorrow. But like the most important thing is the one-on-one aspect of it so that that student can avoid getting really frustrated and overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And so sometimes that is just a fact of life with having
Right.
so many to
That that
to
was
care for at the
the
same
biggest
time.
challenge during COVID when they did the distance learning.
Oh
One, it
yeah.
was putting a kindergartner on an iPad, like
Yeah.
to do a live lesson. Like, good luck with that. Like, but he would see I had a baby, I had a 2-year old, and he would see them playing in the other room and be like, why do
Mm,
I have to do this? It was that part was really hard to juggle. So I imagine like homeschooling, you've
mhm.
got your littles that are, playing
Mhm.
around to do you
Yeah.
have a pretty good like routine set up, like a structure for your day, or is it just let's see how we feel today?
We have a good structure. I am someone who thrives with flexibility and structure.
Okay.
I just need it to be just loose enough that I can do what I want.
Oh, I
And
like that. I definitely like having a plan, but I'm not so rigidly stuck to it that we can't adapt.
yes, yeah. So some days we just do a little extra. Some days we do math and we're like, okay, we're done. So
It's Friday, you guys. Let's
yeah,
take it easy.
yeah, yeah.
So on top of homeschooling, you have also published a novel. Like
Mhm.
how do you have time for that?
Well, I think part of my journey with writing is very much something that I did for myself, and so it was a high priority, and I think because I prioritized it, it happened, it wasn't just something that was optional for me. Part of that was it's like a mental health exercise for me. I also have to say, like, I have a very involved spouse who is not afraid of housework, and he
Mm,
just is very involved as a parent as well with, helping with all of the aspects of the childcare and he works from home, so he's also present for a lot of the day-to-day stuff. And so that just frees me up in a lot of ways to be able to do things that otherwise I wouldn't have
Right.
time to do at all.
Yeah. I love that you shout out that because like same, my husband, like he will do the dishes. He will,
Yeah.
it's not like the typical, like I take out the trash, you do this. Like
Right.
he's very involved. So I always like to shout out because a lot of times you can like get in that rut of dad shaming, I guess. And I
Mm,
try to not do that, like
yes.
he's very
Yeah.
supportive. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you do have a little bit of free time to write.
Mhm.
Was this always something like, did you go to college for writing? Did you always know, really?
No, I went to Bible college, but I have always written as more of a hobby. My husband
Okay.
is actually probably the main reason that I started to take it more seriously because I would start stories and torture him by reading him things that I'd written, and he would be like, "This is so interesting. Where's the rest of it? Why do you never finish
Oh,
anything?" And so he would just kind of challenge me to be like, "Hey, this is good, and so why don't you just
keep
complete
going.
something, you know?"
Ah,
So I can be a little distractible, like, "Oh, shiny new idea."
yeah. Oh
So,
God. Speaking my language here. Yeah.
he was a good accountability
Nice.
for
What
that.
is your like genre? What's your
Mm.
what do you like writing about?
I like writing about people. I do a lot of psychology in character creation. So that's probably the main overarching theme that will be in my books. I'm gonna end up writing across a lot of different genres. So my first book was gothic horror, which surprised me as much as anyone else.
So is it
It
like it just finds you, like the story just finds you, or is it like I set out to write something like that? Gothic
well,
horror. Wait, gothic horror?
yes.
You're like the sweet
So
homeschool
just
mom.
like
That's not what I pictured.
I know, not
But
what
this
I
is fun.
pictured
This could
either.
be like the other side of me, I'm not just mom.
Right. Well, I think that taps in a good bit. It arises out of the subject matter is that I was writing about grief and I was writing from personal experiences of depression and loss that I just wanted to put into art form how I feel and my own journey in some ways.
Hmm.
And so that is a bit of a darker subject matter. It definitely lent itself to a gothic atmosphere. Like just think of Jane Eyre and like actually
Oh.
Jane Eyre's wonderful because that character triumphs over so many sorrows and hardships and it's kind of just the
Hmm.
story of her whole life. And it is set in that kind of somber um
Yeah. Mood.
atmosphere. So, yes.
Did you find it kind of therapeutic to write? Like
Oh,
you were kind of,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it taught me a lot. I didn't realize before I wrote this book that I was not very emotionally intelligent in um being able to process emotions or even understand what's going on in my own emotions.
Mm.
And the process of writing helped reveal that to me. And then I had a really wonderful editor who, gave me book recommendations and challenged me and said, "Hey, like you're kind of distancing yourself from the emotion of this scene. Like, why is that?" And like, just kind
Oh,
of
interesting.
dig into that a
Like a
little bit,
therapist for your writing. You're like, oh,
I
I
know, she
didn't
was
know I was
amazing.
revealing this.
Right. And like those kinds of things you don't necessarily see about yourself until it
Hmm.
kind of just gets spilled out on the
On
page and then
paper.
you realize, wow, this is something that I would really love to do better at. So,
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
And
I
I bet
learned a
you could
lot.
go back. Like, what year did you write that book?
That was 2 years ago
Okay.
that
Because
I
you,
began it. Yeah.
okay. So to like
Yeah.
almost see what you like that mood maybe reflects how you were in this time period. If you
Hmm.
write something in the future, like how that changes,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
songwriters. It's like, oh, you can see this is when they were going through a breakup and this is
Mhm.
when you're doing that. So your books reflect that.
Yes.
What are the titles of your
Absolutely.
books? What are they?
So I just have the one out right now. It's
Okay.
called A Voracious Grief,
Okay.
and it's set in Victorian England. It's about a brother and sister who are aristocrats, and they're they recently lost a lot of their family, and they are trying to re-enter London high society, but the sister Maddie is really not ready, and her brother is pushing her and, um, trying to force her, I guess, to heal faster than she really is willing or able to do. And so that she ends up causing a scandal and they retreat to their country estate, as one does in the
Of
1800s.
course, of course. This is so my genre. I like any period piece is like,
Mm,
oh, I Pride and Prejudice.
yes.
I love all of those. Like,
Jane Austen definitely inspired me a lot.
okay.
So, yes.
Okay, I'm going to add this one to my list. I have a girlfriend that we have very similar tastes. So I'm like, she will like this.
Mm,
This will be
mm,
fun. Oh, how fun.
wonderful. Yeah.
Because allows you to transplant in a different time. Like how
Yeah.
fun. Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. And you're working on another book right now?
I am starting a new one, yes. And this one will be a series. It will be fantasy. So it's as different from gothic horror set in Victorian England as you can possibly get.
Right. What is like the process of writing a book? How long from start to finish does it usually take? Is it varying by authors or
Oh, yes. Yeah. So everybody's process is different. The A Voracious Grief took me 2 years. The first year was really just getting something complete put
okay,
together. And the second year was working with my editor and
like
refining it and
polishing?
really going through that process of learning about the emotional side of it and how to actually write the emotions into the novel really well. And so it went through a huge um revision that second year.
Is that hard to take like when you get constructive criticism? Was it hard to like, oh, like, okay, I
The
worked so
only
hard on this.
Yeah, the only time that I really struggle with criticism is when I feel like whoever read it was either in a hurry or didn't take the time to understand what I was trying to get at.
Okay.
Um, so I know I can do better most all the time. And even I open my book now and read the first chapter and be like, I could have had a stronger
Oh,
start.
is that something that artists go or authors go through that it's never perfect? Like you
I'm
could read
sure.
it a
You're like,
million
you
times and
can't.
still
You
change a word, still change this.
Yeah, you can
Oh,
never make it perfect. But I
mhm.
think for me, the goal is to produce something that I really care about my readers. And I really want, especially with this book, I really wanted to be hospitable to the grief that someone who reads it may have in their own life so that they feel seen and heard and like, oh, this is what that feels like. This is how I feel. And then just be able to offer like maybe a ray of hope or just the theme of friendship and people coming around each other in hard times is one of the main themes in the book. So
Mhm.
that's just something that I wanted to just offer some positive benefit
Well,
to
that is
readers.
like the perfect segue into the next topic. Like you must have planned this. Your social club. Tell me about the social club for women in your community that you have started.
Mhm.
I feel like this is so hard to find in motherhood and
Yeah.
you created it.
Well, in part, I needed something for myself, but it's called the Flannery Club and it's inspired by an author, Flannery O'Connor. She's
I haven't heard of her.
an author of short stories set in the South.
Okay.
Yes. And so she's very edgy. Um, she would be probably too gory for most Christians and too Christian for most, just of your average New York uh editors or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But she was very popular in her time and she inspires me a lot, I think. Um, so I wanted to create kind of this society that's inspired by like being able to think deeply about things and to as women, just encourage each other, challenge each other, and also just to have fun and have a place where we can gather once a month and say like, oh, let's just do something we might not normally do. We do a lot of artsy and culture type of stuff. Like we've gone
Mhm.
to a jazz concert and done like paint and sips hosted at
Uh-huh.
my house and
How
all
fun.
kinds of things like that. So
Okay,
Yeah.
I need to pick your brain about this because I want to start one right now. Okay, so this is local moms in your area.
Yeah. I
How
would
did you
just say women. We have a range of like
Okay,
very young women to much older
grandmas?
women.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Yep.
How did you find these women to join? Was it hard to like get it started or was it just, hey, word of mouth, whoever wants to come?
I I just wrote out personal invitations to women that I met in my church, or just I have women that I've met through different writers events and things who live in this area. And so if they're someone that I feel like, oh, they either might want friends or they might just be a little artsy or a little
Mhm.
interested in exploring something new that they've never tried before, then I will send them an invitation.
Oh, how
Yeah.
fun. Is there childcare involved in this? Because do some
No.
women say, well, this sounds great, but is it usually evenings or?
It's usually evenings.
Okay.
It's often at my house or another person's house. Sometimes we go out to eat together at a restaurant or something.
Okay.
So,
So
yeah.
at least it's not like during the day when you have to find a babysitter or something.
No, yeah.
I love this idea because I found that in motherhood, until I was able to find groups that I could connect with, either with my kids there or not, I just felt so lonely. Like it was
Mm,
very hard to go from, who you were before and then now you're a mom, but being able to share that with other people, like everyone always says, like find your tribe, find your tribe. Well, what
mhm.
do you do if there is no tribe around? So
Yeah.
I like that you created your own. How long have you been doing it?
We're in our second year now. So,
Oh,
yeah, I started it shortly after we moved here because, in part, because we moved here without knowing anyone. And I was like,
mhm.
well, I need to make some friends. So,
Yes. Oh my gosh, good for you though, because that's a hard thing to do. It's hard to like
mm,
branch out and say, okay, I'm gonna go meet them.
yeah.
That's
Well,
fun. Okay, you also sent me a quote. You said that there are times when I look at my almost 10 years of being a mom and feel completely accomplished, and other times when I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. Like
mhm,
I just totally resonated with that because that's exactly how I feel. Just when I think like, okay, I'm getting a handle on this, the kids will do something or I'll burn a pancake, and
mhm.
it's a
Yeah.
learning journey. So what made you think of that line?
Well, I think whenever we were first talking was around November, maybe, or
Mhm.
something, and that crazy busy season of the end of the year, I did feel very much in the place of like, wow, I don't know what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
so I've definitely tasted both of those extremes. And I think that, looking back now that it's been a few months, I'm like, you know what? We probably were just really busy over the
Mm.
holidays. And that can cause everything to just kind of all of your structures, all of your bedtime routines, all of the
Yes.
everything that keeps things nice and secure. When that just starts unraveling, it can just, cause an avalanche of chaos. So
Mhm.
I felt like that was probably what was going on then. But I have felt like that before. There's been times where I've dealt with seasons of depression where I just felt like a failure as a whole human, not even just as a mom. And so, certainly,
Mhm.
the bare minimum of just getting up and feeding my kids every day felt like a monumental task, and it
Right.
can be really easy to think, like, wow, I'm failing if I can't do more than that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think I've just learned in a lot of the ups and downs that it doesn't pay to be hard on yourself. It really is good to be gentle with yourself and to just, prioritize rest and prioritize being in a healthy place.
Yeah.
Um,
I've noticed
yeah.
lately for me, here I am, a mom of three, like I've gone through this all, but it's my kids' behavior that is making me feel like a failure. Like my one
Mm,
son got in preschool. He got into a little trouble at preschool and I just felt like, oh my God, I thought I knew what I was doing. How is he, throwing toys at preschool? But it's not a reflection of me. I have to keep
mhm,
telling myself that like
mhm.
and I'm still learning as I go. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's something to being able to admit your mistakes and even just see the consequences or um the trickle down effect of certain choices and realize like, oh, I have some personal responsibility in that happening. And just being able to then, instead of just feeling so overwhelmed by guilt and like um, even just being depressed or feeling hopeless
Mhm.
about the future, being able to say, you know what, this is an opportunity to repair that relationship and to like be creative about making changes and um yeah, so
I like that. It's an
that's one thing
opportunity
that
to
I've learned.
prepare.
Yeah.
Because the other day I was like, I was so mad at my older son, but I could, hey, let's talk about this. Let's move on. Well, he's probably like, no more talking
Mhm.
about it. I'm done. But you're right. It doesn't have to ruin the relationship. You can move forward.
Right. Yeah.
What would you say are your two biggest takeaways from the last 10 years of motherhood?
Mm. I think that perfectionism really is the enemy. And that's part of
Yeah.
the being gentle with yourself is like
Mhm.
I struggle with perfectionism, and so just allowing myself to not have to live up to my own impossible standards, you know,
Right. It's
is
our standards that we're trying to live
it's
up to.
nobody
Like,
else.
right. No one cares that my house is a mess right now, but I'm like, oh, what if someone sees it?
Yeah. I was having a really emotional week last week. I'm at the end of my pregnancy and it's
Hmm.
hard. And I was telling my husband, "Why can't I be more logical about this?" And he's like, "So you expect yourself to be better than every other pregnant woman who always also struggles with this like last few weeks."
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Okay. You're right. You're right. That's so true. Well, that's so
Yeah.
true.
So
Um,
he helps me remember it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so true. I love this
Mhm.
talk that we're having. I feel like we're just two moms chit-chatting about our kids. I do want to make
Mhm.
sure everyone gets a chance to connect with you and find your book. So
Mhm.
where can we learn more about you and where can we get your book? Because that one's going on the list right now.
Yes. Well, thanks for asking that. And yeah, I have a website that has everything central to me. It's lindseylahm.com and it's LAMH, not
Okay.
like the animal lamb. Yeah, so lindseylahm.com and there's a link to my store. I wanted to offer your listeners a coupon
Oh
just
my
for
gosh,
the
we
burnt
love coupons.
pancakes. Yes. So if you go to my store, it's a PayHip site, and you put in burnt pancakes, you'll get a 50% coupon on
Whoa.
purchases. So
I am writing that down and I'm going to put that in the show notes so we don't
yeah.
forget.
So you
Oh,
can
that's
get my
awesome.
paperback there, and you can
Yay.
also find a lot of really fun artsy t-shirts that are book inspired. Some of them have quotes, some of them
Oh,
just have
so
art. So
cool. I'm going to definitely check that out. Oh, that's
awesome, yeah.
awesome. And we're going to
Hmm.
keep our eyes out for your next book that's coming out in maybe a couple years.
Few years.
Yes. I love the
This is
idea of
the
a
baby
series though.
year, yeah. And
Yes.
then
Okay, what's your official due date?
March 5th.
Oh, goodness.
So,
Okay, so you may
about a
have your
week
baby
and
by the
a
time this this episode comes out. You
absolutely,
can listen to it in
absolutely.
the hospital. How fun.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with the new baby, and I'm very excited to crack open your book.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It's been really wonderful chatting with you.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Burnt Pancakes podcast. I love having you here. I love sharing these mom chats with you and hoping that, if you're feeling a little lonely, that these make you feel like you're listening to a friend. That's kind of what my goal was with this podcast. So, if you want to connect with me, make sure to find me on social media at Burnt Pancakes with Katie. Come say hello. Check out my reels. I try to make them somewhat funny so that it brings some humor to your day. But also feel free to email me. My email's down below in the show notes and just say hello. And until next week, I want to remind you that everyone burns their first pancake, so just keep flipping.